culture will cover the salient aspects of art forms, literature, and architecture from ancient to modern times. Q. The art of storytelling through paintings reached its zenith during Mughal period in India. Elucidate with suitable examples. 250 words. Class 11 NCERT Medieval India. Why this question? The question is about discussing the prevalent art forms, especially the paintings during the Mughal period. Key demand of the question. The question expects us to analyze how the art of storytelling was made relevant with the coming of painting styles during the Mughal periods in India. Directive word. Elucidate, give a detailed account as to how and why it occurred, or what is the particular context. You must be defining key terms wherever appropriate and substantiate with relevant associated facts. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Begin with brief introduction on paintings during the Mughal period. Body. Discuss the coming of storytelling through paintings in India, how it started, when and where. Storytelling through paintings has been an established art form in India. We find many examples of Ramayana and Mahabharata depicted in the form of continuous paintings, for example in Patachitra of Orissa. Similarly, Jatak stories of Buddha are also found in paintings of Ajanta caves in Maharashtra. Though this art form already existed in India, but Mughals with their rich colors and more realistic paintings took this art to its pinnacle. Then move on to explain Mughal era paintings and their significance. Conclusion. Conclude with importance. Introduction. The origin of Indian painting goes back to 8,000 years, and an account of its development is inextricably meshed with the development of Indian civilization. The Mughal school of miniature painting reached its zenith under Akbar and Jahangir. The Ainai Akbari shows the importance the art had attained during this period. Body. Storytelling through paintings is an established art form in India. We find many examples of Ramayana and Mahabharata depicted in the form of continuous paintings, for example in Patachitra of Orissa. Similarly, Jatak stories of Buddha are also found in paintings of Ajanta caves in Maharashtra. Though this art form already existed in India, but Mughals with their rich colors and more realistic paintings took this art to its pinnacle. Features of Mughal paintings. Mughal painting marks a unique blend of Persian and Indian ideas. Mughal painting was essentially a court art developed under the patronage of the ruling Mughal emperors and began to decline when the rulers lost interest. The subjects treated were generally secular, revolving around scenes like battles, court scenes, receptions, legendary stories, hunting scenes, wildlife portraits, and the likes. Imperial Mughal painting represents one of the most celebrated art forms of India. It arose with remarkable rapidity in the mid-16th century as a blending of three distinct traditions. O court painting of Safavid Iran. O indigenous Indian devotional manuscript illumination. O Indo-Persian or Sultanate painting, which is a hybrid of provincial Persian and local Indian styles. The result of this merging resulted in paintings of unprecedented vitality, brilliant coloration, and impossibly precise detail, is something dramatically more than the sum of its parts. Storytelling through paintings. The credit for the development of Mughal painting goes to Akbar and Jahangir. The former possessed a library of 24,000 manuscripts, many of which were illustrated through paintings. In the year 1567, Akbar ordered the preparation of a lavishly illustrated manuscript of the Persian translation of Thay Hamzanamat, the celebrated Arab epic about a legendary Hamza. Saeed Ali and Abdus Samad were appointed to lead a group of roughly 100 painters. The projects took 15 years to complete, and most of the Indian pointers who founded the Mughal school were trained during that period. One of the leading painters at Akbar's court was Apota's son Daswant. Similarly, Tutanema was also an illustrated version of Persian tales in the form of 250 miniature paintings commissioned by Akbar. It is dramatic rather than static, aristocratic more than surreal, and academic rather than vocational. Conclusion. Mughal court paintings provide an insight into the life and times of rulers of the period. These paintings also reflect the contemporary social and political condition of the people. Social customs and courtly traditions are vividly depicted in these paintings. Mughal painting forms a dramatic episode in the history of India. Its aims and standpoint are secular and realistic. It is interested in passing events and most typically in the exact delineation of individual character in the portraiture of men and animals. After Mughal, there came company paintings in India. But they were not as realistic and detailed as Mughal miniature paintings. Q. How did the Bhakti movement help reduce social evils of their times? Justify using suitable examples. 250 words. Class 11 NCERT Medieval India. Why this question? The question is about discussing the role played by Bhakti movement in addressing the social issues. Key demand of the question. The answer must discuss significant role played by Bhakti saints and the movement in addressing the social ills. One has to quote examples to substantiate the answer. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Begin with brief introduction on Bhakti movement. Body. Discussion should include the following. State core principles of Bhakti movement which defied the existing social system and values. Explain how the beginning of Bhakti movement took place in South India between the 7th and the 12th centuries through the teachings of poet saints known as Alvars and Nenar whose hymns were collected and compiled in the 10th century. Kabir, Guru Nanak, Mirabai, Sur Das, Tulsi Das, Chaitanya are some of the prominent saints of Bhakti movement. Bhakti saints rose voice against the popular social conventions and evils of the time such as rejection of ritualism, criticized casteism, monotheism, use of common vernacular languages and local dialect etc. Quote examples of saints like Kabir, Gyaneshwar etc. Conclusion. Conclude by reasserting their role. Introduction. Bhakti was accepted as a means to attain moksha along with jnana and karma. The Bhakti movement originated in the 7th century in Tamil, South India, now parts of Tamil Nadu and Kerala, and spread northwards. It swept over East and North India from the 15th century onwards, reached its peak between the 15th and 17th century CE. The Bhakti saints moved against the austerities propagated by the Buddhist and Jain schools and professed that ultimate devotion to God was the means to salvation. Body. Bhakti movement and fight against social evils. The Bhakti movement in many ways broke barriers of gender, class and caste. At the same time, it shattered stereotypes associated with the perception of spiritualism, denounced orthodoxy and the rigid ritualistic practices of worship, and established a more personal and informal connection between the devotee and the divine. During the Bhakti movement, the lower classes rose to a position of great importance. The Bhakti movement gave equal importance to men and women, which gave way to the importance of women in society. The Alvars and Nayanas initiated a movement of protest against the caste system and the dominance of Brahmanas, or at least attempted to reform the system. This is supported by the fact that bhaktas or disciples hailed from diverse social backgrounds ranging from Brahmanas to artisans and cultivators and even from castes considered untouchable. Basavanna's Virashaivism movement began in Karnataka in the 12th century, which argued for the equality of all human beings and against Brahmanical ideas about caste and the treatment of women. They were also against all forms of ritual and idol worship. Ramananda opposed the caste system and chose his disciples from all sections of society irrespective of caste. His disciples included Kabir, a weaver; Redasa, he was a cobbler; Sena, he was a barber, thus emphasizing the equality among people of all occupations and caste. Namadeva and Ramananda, both of them taught the concept of bhakti to all the four varnas and disregarded the ban on people of different castes cooking together and sharing meals. Saint Kabir aided the common people to shed age-old superstitions and attain salvation through bhakti or pure devotion. He criticized all forms of worship of idols. He stood for doing away with all the unnecessary customs and rituals in both religions and bringing union between these religions. Guru Nanak condemned caste difference and rituals like bathing in holy rivers. His idea of religion was highly practical and strictly moral. Saints from Maharashtra, namely Jananeshwar, Namdev, Eknath, and Tukaram, as well as women like Sekubai and the family of Chokhamela, belong to the untouchable Mahakaste. These saint poets rejected all forms of ritualism, outward display of piety, and social differences based on birth. It is regarded as a humanist idea, as they insisted that bhakti lay in sharing others' pain. Nath panthist Siddhas and Yogas condemned the ritual and other aspects of orthodox religion and the social order, using simple, logical arguments. These groups became particularly popular among low castes. The Bhakti reformers adopted the common language of the people and preached in it instead of preaching either in Sanskrit or in Persian. In this way, a great impetus was given to the development of the vernaculars. Conclusion. Bhakti cult was out-of-the-box thoughts on religion. It was mainly against the common religious views, and most importantly, it was strongly against the caste system. It succeeded to a very small extent in realizing its twofold objective, i.e., bringing about reforms in Hinduism and developing harmonious relations between the Hindus and the Muslims. Topic: Modern Indian history. From about the middle of the 18th century until the present, significant events, personalities, issues, the freedom struggle, its various stages, and important contributions from different parts of the country. Q. Discuss the legacy of Maharaja Ranjit Singh and his contributions to the Sikh community. 250 words. Indian Express. Why this question? The question is straightforward and is about discussing the contributions of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. On Thursday, a statue of Ranjit Singh, who ruled Punjab for almost 4 decades, 1801-39, was inaugurated in Lahore. June 27th is his death anniversary. Demand of the question. The answer must discuss the legacy of Maharaja Ranjit Singh and his contributions to the Sikh community. Directive word, discuss. This is an all-encompassing directive. You have to debate on paper by going through the details of the issues concerned by examining each one of them. You have to give reasons for both for and against arguments. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Start with brief introduction on Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Body. Explain the following aspects. Ranjit Singh was born on November 13, 1780 in Gujranwala, now in Pakistan. At the time, Punjab was ruled by powerful chieftains who had divided the territory into miles. Ranjit Singh overthrew the warring miles and established a unified Sikh empire after he conquered Lahore in 1799. Then explain the contributions of him to Sikh community. Conclusion. Conclude by reasserting the contributions and significance of the same. Introduction. Maharaja Ranjit Singh was the leader of the Sikh Empire, which ruled the northwest Indian subcontinent in the early half of the 19th century. His empire grew in the Punjab region under his leadership through 1839. Many reforms were introduced in the political, religious spheres along with modernization, investment into infrastructure and general prosperity during his reign. He was popularly known as Sher-e-Punjab or Lion of Punjab. Recently, a statue of Ranjit Singh, who ruled Punjab for almost 4 decades, 1801-39, was recently inaugurated in Lahore on the occasion of 180th death anniversary of the legendary Sikh ruler. Body. Legacy of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Ranjit Singh was born on November 13, 1780 in Gujranwala, now in Pakistan. At the time, Punjab was ruled by powerful chieftains who had divided the territory into miles. Ranjit Singh overthrew the warring miles and established a unified Sikh empire after he conquered Lahore in 1799. He was given the title Lion of Punjab, Sher-e-Punjab, because he stemmed the tide of Afghan invaders in Lahore, which remained his capital until his death. His general Hari Singh Nalwa built the fort of Jamrud at the mouth of the Khyber Pass, the route the foreign rulers took to invade India. At the time of his death, he was the only sovereign leader left in India, all others having come under the control of the East India Company in some way or the other. Led the powerful and modernized army. Ranjit Singh's combined the strong points of the traditional Khalsa army with Western advances in warfare to raise Asia's most powerful indigenous army of the time. His army was a match for the one raised by the East India Company. He appointed French General Jean-François Allard to modernize his army. He also employed a large number of European officers, especially French, to train his troops. During the Battle of Chilianwala, the second of the Anglo-Sikh wars that followed Ranjit Singh's death, the British suffered the maximum casualties of officers in their entire history in India. Extent of his reign. Ranjit Singh's trans-regional empire spread over several states. His empire included the former Mughal provinces of Lahore and Multan besides part of Kabul and the entire Peshawar. The boundaries of his state went up to Ladakh. Zorawar Singh, a general from Jammu, had conquered Ladakh in Ranjit Singh's name in the northeast. His empire extended till Khyber Pass in the northwest and up to Panjnid in the south, where the 5 rivers of Punjab fell into the Indus. During his regime, Punjab was a land of 6 rivers, the 6th being the Indus. Contributions to Sikh community. The Maharaja was known for his just and secular rule. Both Hindus and Muslims were given powerful positions in his Darbar. The Sikhs take pride in him, for he turned Harmandir Sahib at Amritsar into the Golden Temple by covering it with gold. Right at the doorstep of the Sanctum Sanctorum of the temple is a plaque that details how in 1830 AD, the Maharaja did service over 10 years. He is also credited with funding Hazur Sahib Gurudwara at the final resting place of Guru Gobind Singh in Nanded, Maharashtra. Conclusion. Ranjit Singh made his empire and the Sikhs a strong political force for which he is deeply admired and revered in Sikhism. Singh is remembered for uniting Sikhs and founding the prosperous Sikh empire. He is also remembered for his conquests and building a well-trained, self-sufficient Khalsa army to protect the empire. Topic: salient features of Indian society, diversity of India. Q. Suicides are not just a consequence of psychological or emotional influences alone but have social dimensions too. Discuss in the context of rising student suicides in India. 250 words. EPW. Why this question? The article discusses the death of Payal Tadvi, a 26-year-old resident doctor at Mumbai's Bial Nair Hospital, which has exposed yet again the insidious nature of discrimination and casteism against scheduled caste (SC), scheduled tribe (ST) students in medical colleges. Demand of the question. Answer must discuss how suicides are not anymore just a consequence of psychological or emotional influences alone but have social dimensions too. Directive word. Discuss. This is an all-encompassing directive you have to debate on paper by going through the details of the issues concerned by examining each one of them. You have to give reasons for both for and against arguments. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Start with stating facts of the scenario. Body. Discuss the following points in detail. First, bring out the general reasons for suicides ranging from fear of failing in examinations, constant criticism from teachers, bullying from peers, family pressure and a loss of a sense of a decent future etc. Then discuss what are the social reasons. Discuss the cases of Rohit Vemula, Payal Tadvi. And for what needs to be done to do away with such heinous incidences. Conclusion. Conclude with what needs to be done. Introduction. Sociologist Emile Durkheim had famously hypothesized that suicides are a result of not just psychological or emotional factors but social factors as well. The death of Payal Tadvi, a 26-year-old resident doctor at Mumbai's Bial Nair Hospital, has exposed yet again the insidious nature of discrimination and casteism against scheduled caste (SC), scheduled tribe (ST) students in medical colleges. Tadvi belonged to the Bhil Muslim community, recognized as an ST group. The death of Rohit Vemula, the Dalit student pursuing his PhD at the University of Hyderabad, whose suicide was described as institutional murder in 2016, is also a case in point. Body. Reasons for high number of suicides in India are a mix of psychological or emotional influences and social dimensions. Discrimination. Or discrimination and slurs for having belonged to an ST community and having procured admission into the college through the SC/ST quota. Or racial slurs, sexist slur etc. leading to extreme harassment of individuals. O. Caste-based discrimination and resentment from upper caste students and faculty is common in the high-pressure environment of medical colleges as well as in other higher educational institutes in the country. O. The 2007 report by the Thorat Committee has shown how rampant and varied the caste-based discrimination practices were in AIIMS, the country's premier medical college. The past few decades have witnessed economic, labor and social changes on a scale rarely seen before. Such rapid change with the economic dislocation and change in social and community links it brings can be destabilizing. Youth suicide, or reason for such high numbers, can be attributed to lack of economic, social and emotional resources. Or more specifically, academic pressure, workplace stress, social pressures, modernization of urban centers, relationship concerns, and the breakdown of support systems. Or some researchers have attributed the rise of youth suicide to urbanization and the breakdown of the traditional large family support system. Or the clash of values within families is an important factor for young people in their lives. As young Indians become more progressive, their traditionalist households become less supportive of their choices pertaining to financial independence, marriage age, rehabilitation, taking care of the elderly, etc. Or the deaths of 49 students in Navodaya Vidyalaya schools in the last 5 years, and of 3 students preparing for the IIT entrance examinations in Kota in a span of 4 days, brings the issue of youth suicides to the fore again. Or more youths are taking their lives due to the fear of failing in examinations, constant flack from teachers, bullying from peers, family pressure and a loss of a sense of a decent future. All these cases force us to recognize that youth suicides are ubiquitous and the educational ecosystem must take the blame for this. Depression. Depression and suicidal thoughts are two of the most frightening things a person can face in their lifetime. Unfortunately, acting on those suicidal thoughts is a far too common scenario for many across the world, including students. Who says that depression and suicide are closely linked, and at its worst, depression can lead to suicide. 0.18% of the total number of people suffering from depression globally were in India in 2015. Measures needed. First, stopgap solutions to setting up expert committees and counselors in schools have not been able to solve the problem. The deep-rooted causes must be addressed. The government must undertake a comprehensive study on the reasons behind these suicides. Second, the curriculum should be designed in ways that stress the importance of mental exercises and meditation. E.g., the Delhi government's initiative on the happiness curriculum may be a step in the right direction. Third, with regards to higher education, 12 measures were suggested by the Justice Rupamwal Commission. Making equal opportunity cells with an anti-discrimination officer functional in universities and colleges. Starting from the most innocuous of ragging practices to extreme harassment, such discriminatory behavior in fact constitutes violence and is an assault on the human rights of a person that prevents them from leading their lives with dignity and obtaining an education. Educational approaches in schools, namely teaching about the facts of suicide, developing educational modules in life skills and problem solving, and training teachers. Psychological support and care should be given to the individual. The state can seek assistance from NGOs as well as religious missionaries for this purpose. Strengthening the existing National Mental Health Program and the District Mental Health Program, along with focus on training resources and streamlining of funds, are some other recommendations for fighting depression and suicide. Finally, it is high time we seek to reinvent our educational ecosystem in ways that impregnate new meanings, new ideas of living, and renewed possibilities that could transform a life of precarity into a life worth living. Conclusion. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among school-age youth. However, suicide is preventable. Youth who are contemplating suicide frequently give warning signs of their distress. Parents, teachers, and friends are in a key position to pick up on these signs and get help. Most important is to never take these warning signs lightly or promise to keep them secret. Q. What do you understand by elder abuse? Discuss the factors contributing to increased elder abuse in India. Also suggests the significance of adult protective services in preventing the same. 250 words. Economic Times. Why this question? A recent study has revealed that more than 71% of senior citizens in India face harassment or humiliation by their own family members, relatives, or children. Thus, it is important for us to analyze the conditions of elders in India with World Elder Abuse Awareness Day approaching on June 15th. Demand of the question. The answer must addresses to what constitutes elder abuse, factors contributing to elder abuse in India, what do you understand by adult protective services and their role in preventing and addressing elder abuse. Directive word. Discuss. This is an all-encompassing directive you have to debate on paper by going through the details of the issues concerned by examining each one of them. You have to give reasons for both for and against arguments. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Start with brief introduction of what is elder abuse. Body. One can have the following points in the answer. Quote facts from survey to depict the current situation. As per the survey, every second senior citizen is being harassed or mistreated or humiliated by their own family members, children, relatives, or others. Then discuss factors responsible for intentional humiliation include poor financial status of family, lack of space, interpersonal issues, chronic diseases of older persons, declining moral value system, among others. The abuse of elders by caregivers is a worldwide issue. In 2002, who brought international attention to the issue of elder abuse? Over the years, government agencies and community professional groups worldwide have specified elder abuse as a social problem. In 2006, the International Network for Prevention of Elder Abuse (INPEA) designated June 15th as World Elder Abuse Awareness Day (WEAAD). Conclusion. Conclude with solutions to the problem and suggest way forward. Introduction. The World Health Organization defines elder abuse as a single or repeated act or lack of appropriate action occurring within any relationship where there is an expectation of trust which causes harm or distress to an older person. This type of violence constitutes a violation of human rights and includes physical, sexual, psychological, and emotional abuse, financial and material abuse, abandonment, neglect, and serious loss of dignity and respect. World Elder Abuse Awareness Day (WEAAD) is observed every year on the 15th of June to raise voice for the elders who are abused and suffered. Body. Key facts. In 6 people 60 years and older experienced some form of abuse in community settings during the past year. Rates of elder abuse are high in institutions such as nursing homes and long-term care facilities, with 2 in 3 staff reporting that they have committed abuse in the past year. Elder abuse can lead to serious physical injuries and long-term psychological consequences. Elder abuse is predicted to increase as many countries are experiencing rapidly aging populations. The global population of people aged 60 years and older will more than double from 900 million in 2015 to about 2 billion in 2050. More than 71% of senior citizens in India face harassment or humiliation by their own family members, relatives, or children, a study has revealed. Factors contributing to increased elder abuse. Poor financial status of family, low income or poverty has been found to be associated with elder abuse. Low economic resources have been conceptualized as a contextual or situational stressor contributing to elder abuse. Healthcare costs increase. As older people stop working and their healthcare needs increase, governments could be overwhelmed by unprecedented costs. Lack of space. Living with a large number of household members other than a spouse is associated with an increased risk of abuse, especially financial abuse. Interpersonal issues. Chronic diseases of older persons. At the individual level, elders who have poor physical and mental health are at higher risk. Elderly women issues. They face lifetime of gender-based discrimination. The gendered nature of aging is such that universally, women tend to live longer than men. Social mores inhibit women from remarrying, resulting in an increased likelihood of women ending up alone. Declining moral value system. At the socio-cultural level, a representation of an older person as weak and dependent, lack of funds to pay for care, elderly people who need assistance but live alone, and destruction of bonds between the generations of a family are possible factors in elder abuse. Significance of adult protective services. Adult Protective Services (APS) are social services provided to abused, neglected, or exploited older adults and adults with significant disabilities. APS is typically administered by local or state health, aging, or regulatory departments and includes a multidisciplinary approach to helping older adults and younger adults with disabilities who are victims. Services range from the initial investigation of mistreatment to health and supportive services and legal interventions up to and including the appointment of surrogate decision makers such as legal guardians. Socioeconomic and cultural changes like disintegration of joint family system, which was earlier responsible for taking care of elderly. Increased participation of women in work has led to lack of caregivers at home for elderly. Enhanced mobility and migration of youth for work opportunities along with more individualistic attitude of the youth means that the elderly are living alone and are in need of social assistance. Increased longevity of the elderly due to advancement in medical field means that they are in need of social assistance long after they stop earning. Due to presence of vast informal unorganized sector in India, most of the elderly does not have subscription to any formal pension income generating system that can provide them resources to meet their daily needs. The APS is thus imperative. Preventive measures needed. Public watch for signs of elder abuse. Older people staying connected with family and friends, making sure their financial and legal affairs are in order. Family and informal caregivers lower their risk of committing abuse by getting help from family or friends, by getting support from local health and social services. Health sector. Raise awareness within the health sector and other sectors about the health and social burden of elder abuse. Recognize elder abuse as a public health problem. Establish a focal point to address elder abuse. Develop and test evidence-based interventions to prevent elder abuse. Provide services to victims of elder abuse. Collaborate with other sectors to address elder abuse, such as criminal justice, health, and social services. Implementation of laws like Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act 2007 to ensure that the rights of senior citizens are protected. Government programs like IGNOAPS, IGNWPS, Pradhan Mantri Vaya Vandana Yojana, Rastriya Vayoshri Yojana, Atal Pension Scheme, Varishtha Pension Bima Yojana must be implemented and ensured that the true beneficiaries are receiving it. Conclusion. The elderly should be seen as a blessing, not a burden. The elderly are becoming the fastest growing, but underutilized resource available to humanity. Rather than putting them aside physically and mentally to be cared for separately, they should be integrated into the lives of communities where they can make a substantial contribution to improving social conditions. The benefits of turning the problem of the elderly into a solution for other social problems are being demonstrated in several countries like Vietnam, Japan, etc. From Katwa to Tappal, whatever has happened in the recent times shows that our inherent sense of social probity and decency in our society is waning. Critically analyze the statement in the backdrop of politicization of recent rape incidents that have questioned the safety of our children in India. 250 words. Hindustan Times. Why this question? The question seeks to address the growing politicization of the rape incidences and the treatment meted out to the victims by the society in an insensitive manner with lacunae in compassion and empathy. Key demand of the question. One has to discuss the deteriorating conditions of our society with respect to treating the rape incidents and the victims of such heinous crimes. Directive. Critically analyze. When asked to analyze, you have to examine methodically the structure or nature of the topic by separating it into component parts and present them as a whole in a summary. When critically is suffixed or prefixed to a directive, one needs to look at the good and bad of the topic and give a fair judgment. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Begin with brief introduction on the recent incidents of Katwa and Tappal. Body. Discussion should include the following: bring out the insensitivity that is prevalent in our society towards such untoward incidents. Explain the root cause behind such a mentality. Why and how such issues are politicized. What needs to be done. Suggest solutions. How can the society evolve out of such unwarranted behavior towards the victim? Conclusion. Conclude by reasserting the alarming need for our societies to change and move forward. Introduction. The series of incidents of sexual assault of minor girls, from Katwa to Tappal, has cast a doubt on the safety of the children. A look at the National Crime Record Bureau data is revealing. Within 5 years, the incidents of rapes of minor girl children have increased enormously. In 2012, the number of cases of molestations and rapes of the girls of 17 years and below was 8,541. This number increased to 19,765 in 2016. In 2018, an ordinance was passed for providing death penalty for rape of children below 12 years. However, this has not deterred the criminals nor reduced the incidents. Body. Reasons for rise in the rape cases. A rise in reporting due to lowering of the stigma attached. Rise of awareness mainly due to social media. Celebrities opening up about being abused in their childhood also motivated parents to report. POCSO in 2012 and Criminal Law Amendment Act in 2013 led to higher reporting of rape against children. Definition of rape now includes many more sexual actions than were earlier classified as sexual assault. Age of consent for girls has been raised from 16 to 18 years. This means boys who have consensual sex can be charged with rape. Low conviction rate. It is only about 3% of the total cases brought before courts as per the NCRB report 2016. One of the main causes for the low rate of conviction under the Act is a lack of infrastructure and manpower in the criminal justice system. Failure of previous acts. Despite the enactment of the POCSO Act in 2012, there has been no decline in the number of crimes against children. Inference. The new law was no deterrent. Delay in justice. It is common for court cases to last years or even decades. One of the reasons is the serious shortage of judges. More than 6 million criminal cases that have been pending for more than 10 years. Timelines for completion of the investigation, for recording of evidence, and for completion of trial are almost never adhered to due to pendency of cases and the lack of facilities. Politicians' attitude. Samajwadi Party Supremo Mulayam Singh Yadav went on record in 2014 to say that crimes like rapes shouldn't lead to death sentence because boys are boys and they make mistakes. In a 2017 report, Everyone Blames Me, Human Rights Watch found that survivors of the crime, particularly among marginalized communities, still find it difficult to register police complaints. They often suffer humiliation at police stations and hospitals, are still subjected to degrading tests by medical professionals, and feel intimidated and scared when the case reaches the courts. They face significant barriers when trying to obtain critical support services such as healthcare, counseling, and legal aid. Measures needed. The Indian government has, in recent years, adopted significant legal reforms for sexual violence cases, but major gaps remain in their implementation. It is the certainty and uniformity of the punishment, rather than the nature of it, which actually deters an offender from committing a crime. Deterrence of the crime and the victim's access to justice require both better implementation of existing laws and systemic changes. Many Indians, men and women, refuse to believe that sexual violence is a serious problem eating away at India's vitals. It is essential to recognize that the crisis lies in the precise manner in which the existing criminal justice system unfolds. India's growing rape culture can be best reversed by enhancing conviction rates through reforms in the police and judicial systems, and by augmenting measures to rehabilitate and empower rape survivors. Criminal justice system remains vulnerable to political pressures and allows many of the accused to go scot-free. The retraining of police officers dealing with various aspects of sexual crimes. Strict action must be taken against the police officer found guilty of obstructing the probe or colluding with perpetrators of such cases. Conclusion. Society itself will have to take the responsibility of giving it the right direction. Without this, we cannot achieve all the promise that we had as a nation at the time of independence. We must collectively rise to the occasion and create a safe India for our children. Topic: Role of women, women organizations, empowerment. Q. Analyze the key findings of newly released SDG Gender Index. What does it signify for the Indian case? 250 words. Indian Express. Why this question? A new index to measure global gender equality was launched recently. It ranked India at 95th among 129 countries. The SDG Gender Index comes close on the heels of the Gender Gap Index of the World Economic Forum, where India was ranked 108th. Key demands of the question. The answer must discuss in detail the finding of the newly released index and its significance to Indian case. Directive. Analyze. When asked to analyze, you have to examine methodically the structure or nature of the topic by separating it into component parts and present them as a whole in a summary. Structure of the answer. Introduction. In a few introductory lines, discuss the significance of the report. Body. The body of the answer has to capture the following aspects. Bodies involved. The SDG Gender Index has been developed by Equal Measures 2030, a joint effort of regional and global organizations. Indicators. It accounts for 14 out of 17 SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, that cover aspects such as poverty, health, education, political representation, and equality at the workplace. Methodology. A score of 100 reflects the achievement of gender equality in relation to the targets set for each indicator. Global scenario. Key findings. Altogether, 2.8 billion girls and women live in countries that get either a very poor 59 and below or poor score 60 to 69 on gender equality. Just 8% of the world's population of girls and women live in countries that received a good gender equality score 80 to 89. No country achieved an excellent overall score of 90 or above. Denmark with score of 89.3 topped the rankings, followed by Finland and Sweden. Key findings for India. India has been ranked at 95th among 129 countries. India's highest goal scores are on health 79.9, hunger and nutrition 76.2, and energy 71.8. Its lowest goal scores are on partnerships 18.3, in the bottom 10 countries worldwide, industry, infrastructure and innovation 38.1, and climate 43.4. India was ranked 108th on the latest Gender Gap Index released by the World Economic Forum. Conclusion. Conclude with way forward and importance of such report. Introduction. SDG Gender Index for 2019 was developed by Equal Measures 2030, a joint effort of regional and global organizations including African Women's Development and Communication Network, Asian Pacific Resource and Research Center for Women, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation etc. It accounts for 14 out of 17 SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, that cover aspects such as poverty, health, education, literacy, political representation and equality at the workplace. India is at 95th among 129 countries. A score of 100 reflects the achievement of gender equality in relation to the targets set for each indicator. Body. Key findings of the SDG Gender Index. The global average score of the 129 countries with 95% of the world's girls and women is 65.7 out of 100 poor in the index. Nearly 1.4 billion girls and women are living in countries that get a very poor grade. Altogether, 2.8 billion girls and women live in countries that get either a very poor 59 and below or poor score 60 to 69. Just 8% of the world's population of girls and women live in countries that received good gender equality score 80 to 89. Notably, no country achieved an excellent overall score of 90 or above in gender equality. Besides, not all countries' scores on the index correlate with national income. Some countries perform better than what would be expected based on their GDP per capita, and others underperform. With all these, it was highlighted that the world was far from achieving gender equality. India's performance. India's highest goal scores are on health 79.9, hunger and nutrition 76.2, and energy 71.8. Its lowest goal scores are on partnerships 18.3, in the bottom 10 countries, industry, infrastructure and innovation 38.1, and climate 43.4. On indicators that define the goals, India scored 95.3 on the percentage of female students enrolled in primary education who are over age. In the proportion of seats held by women in National Parliament, India scored 23.6, women made up 11.8% of Parliament in 2018. On seats held by women in the Supreme Court, 4%, India has a score of 18.2. Overall, India largely performs as expected based on its GDP per capita. Gender-based violence in India. Proportion of women aged 20 to 24 years who were married or in a union before age 18, 27.3%. Women who agreed that a husband partner is justified in beating his wife partner under certain circumstances, 47.0%. Women aged 15 plus who reported that they feel safe walking alone at night in the city or area where they live, 69.1%. Conclusion. The above findings reveal that India is lagging behind in gender parity. This was supported by findings in the Global Gender Gap Index 2, where India was ranked 108. It is important to empower women who form half of the population to achieve the goals of SDG. Q. The recent proposal of Delhi government to make public transport free for women has opened a debate about the ways in which women access transport and the barriers they face. In such a context, analyze how reforms in public transport affect women. 250 words. Live mint. Why this question? The article provides for a detailed analysis of how public transport reforms can be a boon to women and their empowerment. Demand of the question. This answer must analyze in detail the reforms in public transport and their effect on women. Directive word. Analyze. When asked to analyze, you have to examine methodically the structure or nature of the topic by separating it into component parts and present them as a whole in a summary. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Start with brief introduction of importance of public transport. Body. One can start by quoting facts like census data from 2011 showed that 45% of women do not even travel for work, meaning that they work out of their own houses. As a result, India has one of the world's most lopsided ratios of male versus female commuting. This gender commuting gap may be linked to the gender wage gap, which also really opens up after the arrival of children in the family. If women take work closer to home because of caring responsibilities, they may be less likely to find a job well matched to their skills or with a high-paying employer. Discuss the general challenges faced by women owing to lack of transport facilities. Then move on to explain the effect of policy reforms. Explain the case study of Delhi. Conclusion. Conclude with significance of such steps. Introduction. The Delhi government has proposed to make travel by buses and metro rail free for all women in about 3 months. Few experts have criticized the Delhi government's proposal to make buses and the metro free for women. Under the proposal announced by the Delhi government, women will have the option to not pay for rides. The move, which is at the stage of feedback and planning, has drawn reactions ranging from enthusiastic approval to vehement rejection. Body. Rationale behind this move. To tackle congestion on the roads, the free rides measure is meant to encourage more women to use public transport. To make it easier for women to move from informal and more unsafe modes of transport such as shared autos and cabs to more formal and safer modes such as the metro. To help more women enter the workforce. Barriers of public transport faced by women. Census data from 2011 revealed that 45% of women do not even travel for work, meaning that they work out of their own houses. India has one of the world's most lopsided ratios of male versus female commuting, according to data aggregated by the Centre for Diet and Activity Research, a research unit at the University of Cambridge. For both men and women across India, walking is the most common commute to work. For women, after walking, the bus is the most common mode of transport. A 2005 study in Delhi slums found that women spend more time traveling on slower modes of transport to access work since faster modes are more expensive. Similarly, women respondents in a 2011 World Bank study in Mumbai reported finding the bus pass prohibitively expensive and pointed out that cheap bus travel would enable them to better access the local trains, which in turn could connect them to better paying jobs in South and Central Mumbai. Reforms in public transport affect women. Any change in public transport directly affects women as they are proportionately higher user of public transportation. The initiative of the Delhi government to make public transport free for women can affect women in the following ways. Less gender commuting gap. Subsidized public transport can help cash-constrained women get access to better paying employment opportunities even if it takes longer commuting. More economic growth. As the women participation in the country increases with improved transportation, a vast untapped human resource in the economy can lead to better growth. Better quality of life. Poor transport system affects the quality of life of women more. They can pursue their desired work if transportation improves. Safety. In the case of unaffordable public transport, women tend to prefer taking cheaper and unsafe transport, e.g. overloaded auto. Sometimes they miss the ticket for trains due to long queue in late nights, which creates a big safety issues for them. A cheaper and affordable or free transport would enable them to commute safely. Way forward. Discounted fares for certain classes of commuters, including students and seniors, could be introduced. This, along with daily and weekly cap on fares, might encourage greater use of buses and metro. That requires widespread adoption of smart payment cards that are valid across various modes of public transport. Cities such as London and Sydney are among the many that have such a system in place. G. The Oyster card is valid for travel through all 6 zones of London and has a daily cap of £12.80. So, the government could do well to start free e-rickshaw rides for women and children and thus address both their safety and local commute concerns. It can work with the central government to train the police force in gender sensitivity to make the national capital safer for women in overall terms. Proper security measures like CCTV, floor marshals etc. to deal with the misbehavior and other such alike cases. Collaborating with the private sector, like encouraging their women employees to travel via public transport, provision of buses etc. Protection to activists in sensitive cases must be provided. Besides, the real demands in light of the safety concerns are enlightened education campaigns and a heightened investment on security and vigilance. Instead of subsidies, the government can augment Delhi's bus service in terms of quantity and security. Q. Sexual harassment at workplace is often a manifestation of expression of power. In the light of the above statement, discuss the loopholes and the inadequacies in the implementation of Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act and suggest what needs to be done. 250 words EPW. Why this question? The article talks about the lacunae the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act would face owing to implementation difficulties, as most of the time the act of harassment is a result of power expression. Key demand of the question. The answer must first justify why the sexual harassment at workplace is often a manifestation of power and in what way the act fails to address the issue in totality owing to different reasons. Directive. Discussed. This is an all-encompassing directive you have to debate on paper by going through the details of the issues concerned by examining each one of them. You have to give reasons for both for and against arguments. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Begin by explaining the statement in the question. Body. Discussion should include the following. First, discuss the coming of the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act. Its benefits and the relief it brought with it. Then move on to discuss how sexual harassment cases at the workplace continue to be reported in large numbers, which means that the nature of the workplace itself needs to be questioned. Substantiates sufficiently how laws alone are not enough and other redressal mechanisms need to be put in place to address the issue. Conclusion. Conclude by stating the way forward. Introduction. The Supreme Court in a judgment in 1997 laid the Vishakha guidelines, which are legally binding, defined sexual harassment and imposed three key parameters on the institutions, i.e., prohibition, prevention and redressal. Sexual harassment of women at workplace prevention, prohibition and redressal legislation passed by the Parliament in December 2013 is the landmark law in gender protection. Together with the criminal law amendments to sections 354A, 354B, 354C and 354D of the Indian Penal Code treating harassment as criminal offences, the Act constitutes a determined response to meet the challenge of sexual harassment of women at the workplace. Body. Features of the Act. The Act defines sexual harassment at the workplace and creates a mechanism for redressal of complaints. It also provides safeguards against false or malicious charges. Every employer is required to constitute an internal complaints committee at each office or branch with 10 or more employees. The complaints committees have the powers of civil courts for gathering evidence. The complaints committees are required to provide for conciliation before initiating an inquiry if requested by the complainant. Penalties have been prescribed for employers. Non-compliance with the provisions of the Act shall be punishable with a fine. Repeated violations may lead to higher penalties and cancellation of license or registration to conduct business. Loopholes and inadequacies in the Act. It fails to cover those women working in the agricultural workers and armed forces, which are largely men-dominated sectors. The Act appears to be gender-biased since it only protects women. The Act has a wide scope for false allegations. There are high chances of these laws getting misused at the hands of women for their personal benefits. The Act does not satisfactorily address accountability. Notably, it does not specify who is in charge of ensuring that workplaces comply with the Act and who can be held responsible if its provisions are not followed. Many organizations have not constituted an internal complaints committee. Further, women rights activists point out that organizations generally view sexual harassment cases from the perspective of their public image and not as a breach to individual employees' breach to dignity and safety. This often leads to hushing up of cases. Most of the ICCs lack people who have knowledge about legal technicalities involved in conducting the inquiry, cross-examinations and its importance. The Act and rules do not contain any provision to address anonymous complaints, and from a strict reading of the Act and the rules, it appears that a complaint should be made by the victim herself or any other person she authorizes. However, employers often find that complaints are made anonymously or that the complainant does not want to be identified. The employer is under an obligation to submit a report on redressal of complaints of sexual harassment to such authorities as may be notified under the Act. Many states have not issued a notification determining the authority. A survey conducted by Indian National Bar Association revealed that nearly 70% of women did not complain about sexual harassment at workplace due to fear, embarrassment, lack of confidence in complaint mechanism, unawareness, and due to stigma attached to sexual harassment. Cases of sexual harassment of domestic workers have been specifically excluded from the purview of the bill. Measures needed. State governments should take on the responsibility of enforcing implementation. Greater gender diversity at the workplace, an area where India lags. Sensitize female employees to their rights and the guidelines. There has to be a sense of fear in the mind of the offenders which has to be ensured. There must also be equal punishment to women who make false charges. Any complaint of rape should have a time bar and complaints cannot be entertained beyond certain time limit. The attitudinal change, socialization process and education must go towards making man more sensitive while dealing with women. The process of making sexual harassment complaints should be. Workplace audits should be as big a priority as auditing the finances of the company. The law that mandate that the investigation should be completed within 90 days should be strictly adhered to. Adequate workshops and awareness program against sexual harassment must be conducted across the organization. Conclusion. The issue of sexual harassment cannot be addressed by mere enactment of laws. Sincere efforts need to be made in overcoming stereotypes, narrow-mindedness and gender biasness. A more gender-neutral approach needs to be taken to address sexual harassment. Topic: urbanization, their problems and their remedies. Q. Though urbanization is considered to be a reagent for economic growth, so far India has not been able to tap its full potential. Discuss. 250 words. Reference. Why this question? India's emerging urban movement is caught between two realities: inadequate systems in public transportation, housing, waste management, and access to sanitation and health, and a burgeoning ecosystem of enterprising individuals, communities, and startups pushing innovative solutions to these very same civic issues. Thus, it's necessary for us to evaluate the concerns and challenges involved. Key demand of the question. The answer must evaluate in detail the challenges facing urbanization in India and suggest what needs to be done. Directive word. Discussed. This is an all-encompassing directive you have to debate on paper by going through the details of the issues concerned by examining each one of them. You have to give reasons for both for and against arguments. Structure of the answer. Introduction. In a few introductory lines, bring out the current state of urbanization in India. If possible, use facts, data to assert better. Body. Answers must discuss the following aspects. Discuss specific challenges of urbanization in India. The efficacy of urban administration has not improved with the pace of urbanization. Examine the reasons and suggest remedies. Explain the deficits in urban administration. 1. Empowerment. 2. Resource. 3. Accountability deficits. Lack of resources and efficient policies to put things in place, etc. Explain how urbanization brings economic growth and what are the concerns in this context in Indian scenario. What needs to be done. Conclusion. Conclude with way forward. Introduction. India will be the third largest economy by 2025, HSBC 2018. Powering that growth is the country's urbanization, which is accelerating rapidly in absolute numbers, although not as fast if considering decadal growth rates. Either way, the urban population growth is substantial and at scale enough for the World Bank to put India alongside China, Indonesia, Nigeria and the United States as the countries that will lead the global urban surge by 2050, World Bank 2018. This makes urbanization in India both a challenge and an opportunity to create innovative solutions. Body. The challenges in urban development for management purpose are: planning. The new challenge today is management of rural-urban fringes. The expansion of urban fringes is taking place at rapid pace. There is need of immediate long-term planning for sustainable development of areas in fringes. Transport and communication. The future challenge will be linked with the urban transport facilities. Roads are congested, rail and metro network is inadequate, resulting into movement within the city being slow and tiring. Housing. It has been already observed now the cost of living is too high in metropolitan areas. Crumbling infrastructure in public services has to be managed on far footings. Migration. Migration will continue as urban areas act as a center of economic growth. Problem of slums is about to thus leading to health challenges for public health system. Solid waste management. In case of waste management issue, nuclear, cyber and plastic waste will create a big challenge for clean and pollution-free urban environment. Poverty. Urban poverty has a very peculiar character. Street vendors and people in other informal sector, women, children and old age population will suffer most from the deteriorating urban ecology. Environmental challenges. Growth in man-made and natural disasters is another challenge because of unplanned cities. Urban island effects have already been observed in urban setup. Chennai flood in 2015. Service delivery. Urban local government will have to do a gigantic task of timely service delivery as there is paradigm shift in public administration towards new public management. Measures needed. The first and foremost importance has to be given to the providing human face to urban development. Playgrounds, green belts, open spaces, footpaths, public gardens have to be deliberately created in order to create an environment of sustainability. Digital India program and information technology solutions must be made available at affordable cost to all segments of society. Bridging the existing digital divide is priority for true democratic setup of urban areas. Harnessing the power of ICT, NEGP, NOF, NETC. The recent policy proposal by government to focus on fringe areas is a welcoming step. Waste management has to be addressed at point of generation only. The case of Pune can provide some guideline in this case as it has a unique model of contractual system for efficient and segregation of urban waste. Infrastructure has to follow the green norms. Revival of tradition water structure can provide best solutions for water need of urban areas. The flagship schemes like the Smart Cities, Amrut, Housing for All, Hriday and Swachh Bharat are aimed at not only addressing various deficits to provide better urban governance but also seek to make Indian cities and towns hubs of growth and sustainable development. A series of reforms through incentives and disincentives have been put in place to achieve these goals. Incentives for universal housing, giving infrastructure status to affordable housing, allowing FDI and providing income tax exemption are among the important measures taken. Also, the government is promoting innovative measures like waste to energy, waste to compost and the reuse of construction and demolition waste as part of sustainable urbanization. Way forward. Housing for all policy should be pursued with a vigorous annual review that ranks states on the basis of performance. The center should also take its own national urban transport policy on developing cities around mobility networks seriously. Urban governance policies, although mainly in the domain of the states, must be aligned with national commitments on reduction of carbon emissions under the Paris Agreement and to achieve Sustainable Development Goal 11. There is a need for a plan of action to achieve sustainable human settlements. It should ensure adequate shelter, water, energy, sanitation and solid waste management along with other elements. There is a need for proper planning and various deficits relating to infrastructure, housing, slum upgradation, reduced pollution, employment, education and health in urban areas need to be through public and private participation. Conclusion. Cities are living ecosystems. They need to be managed accordingly. Rather than going by populist measures or sticking to the original master plans, local solutions to local problems, innovative, in situ and tailor-made solutions should be evolved, adapted and adhered to. Authorities need to be willing to learn, evolve and discard if necessary. Q. Analyze the effect of urban traffic congestion on economic growth and quality of life of the country. 250 words. Indian Express. Why this question? A recent study has ranked Mumbai as the most traffic congested city in the world for the second straight year and Delhi at fourth place. Thus it's important for us to analyze the effects of congestion on economic growth and quality of life of the country. Demand of the question. This question seeks to examine the problems posed by traffic congestion in the Indian cities. Directive word. Analyze. When asked to analyze, you have to examine methodically the structure or nature of the topic by separating it into component parts and present them as a whole in a summary. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Start with brief introduction of the context of the question. Body. One can start by stating the recent findings. Traffic Index 2018 published by TomTom, an Amsterdam-based company that offers traffic solutions and has been publishing city rankings for 8 years. The latest index ranks 403 cities across 56 countries. Mumbai is the most traffic congested city in the world for the second straight year and Delhi is ranked at fourth place. Bogota, Colombia is ranked at second and Lima, Peru is ranked third. Mumbai's 2018 congestion level of 65% therefore means that the extra travel time is 65% more than an average trip would take during uncongested conditions. For Delhi, by the same yardstick, the extra travel time is 58% more. Then move on to explain the problems posed by traffic congestion. Explain the link between traffic congestion and economic growth, quality of life, as to how it is a key determining factor, etc. Conclusion. Conclude with solutions to the problem. Introduction. In recent years, traffic congestion, traffic accidents, and deterioration of the environment because of growing population, increasing urbanization, and increasing car ownership have become serious problems in the urban areas. Mumbai was ranked as the most traffic congested city in the world for the second straight year, while Delhi was at fourth place as part of the Traffic Index 2018 published by TomTom, an Amsterdam-based company. Body. Traffic congestion means there are more vehicles trying to use a given road facility than it can handle without exceeding acceptable levels of delay or inconvenience. Congestion and the associated slow urban mobility can have a huge adverse impact on both the quality of life and the economy. Effects of the urban traffic congestion, economic impacts. Since the 1990s, the spur in economic growth has created a huge demand for transport infrastructure and services. Despite increasing level of urban mobility in Indian cities, urban transportation is becoming increasingly difficult in terms of convenience, cost and time. It is concerned with the monetary value of the time spent sitting in traffic. Congestion in Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, and Kolkata costs the economy 1.47 lakh rupees crore annually, according to a study conducted by a global consultancy firm. Traffic congestion in Bangalore alone costs the city approximately 5% of its economic output. Unaffordability of private transport and lack of proper public transit option has become a major concern, especially for the urban poor. Quality of life. Environmental concerns like increasing air and noise pollution. In 2016, a World Health Organization (WHO) study found that 14 of the 20 world's most polluted cities belong to India. According to CPCB, Central Pollution Control Board, around 180 Indian cities face severe pollution concentration. In Indore, transport contributes 30% of PM10 but 46% of PM2.5, while in Chennai it is 20% of PM10 and 35% of PM2.5. Air pollution is the fifth leading cause of death in Indian cities. Road accidents. India experiences 120,000 deaths per year due to traffic fatalities, more than any other country. Delhi has the highest accident rate in India and third highest in the world. Blocked traffic also interferes with the passage of emergency vehicles, etc. Safety or the lack thereof is the single biggest factor constraining women's mobility. According to ActionAid UK, 79% of women in major Indian cities reported being harassed on streets. Measures needed. Better integrated urban planning. Currently, urban transport policies are regulated by city municipalities in the country. At the national level, the Government of India's Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission (JNNURM) mandated to transform urban areas, particularly urban transport. Promotion and integration of public transport. The Working Group on Urban Transport for 12th Plan Period recognizes the importance of public in India. Metro rail transport is already in operation in cities like New Delhi and Bangalore. The same facilities are also underway in other major cities like Mumbai, Chennai, Hyderabad, Jaipur and Kolkata. Intelligent signalization system. Instead of using conventional old signalization, we must go for automated signalization in the mega cities. Intersections are the major sources of the congestion and the system could relieve a much amount of congestion. Strict lane management. Different lanes for different types of vehicles should be marked on the roads and law, i.e. financial penalty should be imposed to make the drivers maintain the lane discipline. Supply and demand congestion can be reduced by either increasing road capacity, supply, or by reducing traffic. Demand revealed that road capacity can be increased in a number of ways, such as adding more capacity over the whole of a route or at bottlenecks, creating new routes, and improvements for traffic. Reduction of demand can include parking restriction, park and ride, congestion pricing, road space rationing, incentives to use public transport, and introduction of education, shopping and home-based working options will reduce the number of people traveling. Effective traffic policies like street usage capacity, area licensing system, electronic road pricing, quota for new vehicle system, weekend car system etc. must be implemented. Conclusion. There is requirement of integrated urban transport policies to reduce the congestion on urban roads. Continuous vehicle purchasing due to high income in the mega cities also should be addressed, and there should be birth of new rules and regulations for registering a new vehicle. The major urban congested cities like Delhi, Mumbai etc. State and city public transport undertaking need to be strengthened to attract the public to use the public transport. Introducing a rapid and efficient public transport and promoting it to a national level leads to some relief in the major congestion problems in the urban cities. In the mega cities, there is a need of strict rules of parking and uniform charges of vehicles so that no one can park their vehicles on the busy roads. Metropolises are going to be a key feature of India's urbanization and will play a crucial role in fueling growth. Elucidate. 250 words. The Hindu. Why this question? The article highlights Global Metro Monitor 2018 reports, which says that 9 Indian metros feature in the top 150 ranks of the Economic Performance Index. By 2030, India will have 71 metropolitan cities, of which 7 would have a population of more than 10 million. Key demand of the question. Amidst growing metro regions in India, the question seeks to discuss the role that the metropolis would play in shaping Indian urban landscape. Directive. Elucidate, give a detailed account as to how and why it occurred, or what is the particular context. You must be defining key terms wherever appropriate and substantiate with relevant associated facts. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Begin with brief introduction on the report statistics. Body. Discussion should include the following. First, explain what are metropolitan areas concentrate and accelerate wealth, as these are agglomerations of scale that concentrate higher level economic functions. Discuss how they play a role in changing the urban landscape. Then discuss the challenges associated with this growing urban picture. What needs to be done? Conclusion. Conclude by way forward. Introduction. The Global Metro Monitor 2018 reports that 36% of employment growth and 67% of GDP growth were contributed by the 300 largest global metros, with those in emerging economies outperforming those in advanced economies. Body. Relevance of metropolitan cities. Metropolitan areas concentrate and accelerate wealth, as these are agglomerations of scale that concentrate higher level economic functions. 9 Indian metros feature in the top 150 ranks of the Economic Performance Index. By 2030, India will have 71 metropolitan cities, of which 7 would have a population of more than 10 million. Clearly, metropolises are going to be a key feature of India's urbanization and will play a crucial role in fueling growth. Metropolis in Indian context. Article 243(c) of the Constitution defines metropolitan areas as those having population of 10 lakhs, a million or more, comprised in one or more districts and consisting of 2 or more municipalities, panchayats, other contiguous areas, specified by the governor through public notification to be a metropolitan area. It recognizes metropolitan areas as multi-municipal and multi-district entities. It mandates the formation of a Metropolitan Planning Committee (MPC) for preparing draft development plans, considering common interests between local authorities, objectives and priorities set by central and state governments, and investments likely to be made in the area by various agencies. To ensure the democratic character of the MPC, it is mandated that at least two-thirds of the members of the committee must be elected by and from among the elected members of the municipalities and chairpersons of the panchayats in the metropolitan area, proportionate to the ratio of their respective populations. The size and manner of filling such seats are left to the state's discretion. Key concerns with metropolises. India is yet to begin the discourse on a governance framework for the future of its metropolises. It is yet to recognize that disaster management, mobility, housing, climate change, etc. transcend municipal boundaries and require regional level solutions. The World Bank notes that despite the emergence of smaller towns, the underlying character of India's urbanization is metropolitan, with towns emerging within the proximity of existing cities. Janagraha's annual survey of India's city systems, Upsc 2018, found that only 9 out of 18 cities mandated to form MPCs have constituted them. Where constituted, their functionality is questionable, with the limited role of local elected representatives raising further questions on democratic decentralization. Thus, the provision for an MPC has not introduced robust governance of metropolises, as the metropolises continue to be a collection of parastatals and local bodies in an entirely fragmented architecture. The City Deals model of UK. The UK has rolled out City Deals, an agreement between the Union government and a city economic region, modeled on a competition policy-style approach. The city economic region is represented by a combined authority. This is a statutory body set up through national legislation that enables a group of 2 or more councils to collaborate decisions, and which is steered by a directly elected mayor. This is to further democratize and incentivize local authorities to collaborate and reduce fragmented governance, drive economic prosperity, job growth, etc. City Deals move from budget silos and promote economic growth budget across regions. Way forward. It is time India envisions the opportunities and challenges from a city level to city region level. The central government must create a platform to build consensus among state governments. Perhaps the Greater Bengaluru Governance Bill 2018, drafted by the Expert Committee for Brihat Bengaluru Mahanagara Palike Restructuring, could offer direction. It proposes for a Greater Bengaluru Authority headed by a directly elected mayor, responsible for the overall planning of Greater Bengaluru, with powers for inter-agency coordination and administration of major infrastructural projects across the urban local bodies within the area. However, this bill is yet to see the light of day. Extra information. Global Best Practices, the UK has established 9 such combined authorities. Australia adopted a regional governance model along these lines in 2016 and has signed 4 city deals till date. Meanwhile, China is envisioning 19 seamlessly connected super city clusters. Q. How India's metropolises will play a crucial role in fueling growth. How far UK's model of city deals would help to govern the engines of growth in India. 250 words. The Hindu. Introduction. The Global Metro Monitor 2018 reports that 36% of employment growth and 67% of GDP growth were contributed by the 300 largest global metros, with those in emerging economies outperforming those in advanced economies. Body. Relevance of metropolitan cities. Metropolitan areas concentrate and accelerate wealth, as these are agglomerations of scale that concentrate higher-level economic functions. 9 Indian metros feature in the top 150 ranks of the Economic Performance Index. By 2030, India will have 71 metropolitan cities, of which 7 would have a population of more than 10 million. Clearly, metropolises are going to be a key feature of India's urbanization and will play a crucial role in fueling growth. Metropolis in Indian context. Article 243p(c) of the Constitution defines metropolitan areas as those having population of 10 lakhs, a million or more, comprised in 1 or more districts and consisting of 2 or more municipalities, panchayats, other contiguous areas, specified by the governor through public notification to be a metropolitan area. It recognizes metropolitan areas as multi-municipal and multi-district entities. It mandates the formation of a Metropolitan Planning Committee (MPC) for preparing draft development plans, considering common interests between local authorities, objectives and priorities set by central and state governments, and investments likely to be made in the area by various agencies. To ensure the democratic character of the MPC, it is mandated that at least two-thirds of the members of the committee must be elected by and from among the elected members of the municipalities and chairpersons of the panchayats in the metropolitan area, proportionate to the ratio of their respective populations. The size and manner of filling such seats are left to the state's discretion. Key concerns with metropolises. India is yet to begin the discourse on a governance framework for the future of its metropolises. It is yet to recognize that disaster management, mobility, housing, climate change, etc. transcend municipal boundaries and require regional-level solutions. The World Bank notes that despite the emergence of smaller towns, the underlying character of India's urbanization is metropolitan, with towns emerging within the proximity of existing cities. Janagraha's annual survey of India's city systems, ASEX 2018, found that only 9 out of 18 cities mandated to form MPCs have constituted them. Where constituted, their functionality is questionable, with the limited role of local elected representatives raising further questions on democratic decentralization. Thus, the provision for an MPC has not introduced robust governance of metropolises, as the metropolises continue to be a collection of parastatals and local bodies in an entirely fragmented architecture. The City Deals model of UK. The UK has rolled out City Deals, an agreement between the Union government and economic region, modelled on a competition policy-style approach. The city economic region is represented by a combined authority. This is a statutory body set up through national legislation that enables a group of 2 or more councils to collaborate decisions, and which is steered by a directly elected mayor. This is to further democratize and incentivize local authorities to collaborate and reduce fragmented governance, drive economic prosperity, job growth, etc. City Deals move from budget silos and promote economic growth budget across regions. Way forward. It is time India envisions the opportunities and challenges from a city level to city region level. The central government must create a platform to build consensus among state governments. Perhaps the Greater Bengaluru Governance Bill 2018, drafted by the Expert Committee for Brihat Bengaluru Mahanagara Palike Restructuring, could offer direction. It proposes for a Greater Bengaluru Authority headed by a directly elected mayor, responsible for the overall planning of Greater Bengaluru, with powers for inter-agency coordination and administration of major infrastructural projects across the urban local bodies within the area. However, this bill is yet to see the light of day. Extra information. Global Best Practices, the UK has established 9 such combined authorities. Australia adopted a regional governance model along these lines in 2016 and has signed 4 city deals till date. Meanwhile, China is envisioning 19 seamlessly connected super city clusters. Topic: population and associated issues. Q. The crucial implication from UN's World Population Prospects 2019 report is that India's growing population positions more tests than opportunities. Critically analyze. 250 words. The Hindu Business Line. Why this question? India is set to become the most populous nation in 2027, surpassing China, according to an estimation by the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs. The article discusses how India's growing population poses more challenges than opportunities. Demand of the question. The answer must discuss the findings of the report and explain the challenges and opportunities India has in the coming future. Directive word. Critically analyze. When asked to analyze, you have to examine methodically the structure or nature of the topic by separating it into component parts and present them as a whole in a summary. When critically is suffixed or prefixed to a directive, one needs to look at the good and bad of the topic and give a fair judgment. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Start with narration of few key facts and findings of the report. Body. The answer must have the following discussions. First, discuss the key findings of the report. Then move on to discuss in what way India's growing population poses more challenges than opportunities. Provide for an analysis of the consequences of growing population in different scenarios, rural regions, urban regions, men, women, different communities of the society, etc. Conclusion. Conclude by suggesting solutions to control the population size and handle the challenges posed by it. Introduction. India is set to become the most populous nation in 2027, surpassing China, according to an estimation by the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs. India's population has been growing at a much faster rate than China's, with the poorer regions contributing the most to that growth. Body. Opportunities. The median age of India's population will be 28.43 years in 2020 compared to 38.4 years in China. The size of markets will increase. This should enable firms to take greater advantage of economies of scale. Extra demand will be generated. This is likely to stimulate investment, and this may lead to introduction of new technology. There may be an increase in factor mobility if the rise has resulted from an increase in the birth rate or immigration. Expanding industries can recruit new workers to the labor force. These people are likely to be familiar with new ideas and methods. If this is the case, firms' training costs will be reduced. A rise in the labor force presently due to net immigration and in the future caused by a rise in the birth rate. Net immigration will bring in more workers. If the population is above the optimum size, the country will be able to make better use of its resources. Challenges posed outweigh the opportunities. TFR varies significantly across the socio-economic groups. It is concentrated among economically weaker section of the society, which has implications on SDGs, poverty, hunger, malnutrition, health, education, etc. Jobs are not created at the rate it should be and growth is uneven. We have short window of opportunity. It is important to nurture and exploit this population growth to the best economic advantages as a challenge. Challenge is how we raise India's economic status from being low middle country to at least high middle income. Share of older people is rising rapidly. Growth for older people is 70% from now to 2050, but total population is growing only by 56%. The aspiration of the women and families have changed with time. They now want fewer children but lack access to family planning. This is evident from one report which says that there is 13% unwanted fertility in India. Real challenge is quality of life. 21% of 60+ population is suffering from chronic morbidities. Unequal rate of population growth among states. Way forward. It is very necessary to create growth momentum. Investment should be adequately made in key infrastructure areas, social infrastructure, and that to particularly education, water, and health. Family planning is a preventive measure in bringing down maternal and child mortality rate. China and Japan have controlled their population by various measures. The same can be adopted by us according to our suitability. More support from private sector is needed for supporting government's family planning program. The rural access to quality medical service has to be improved. Making agriculture remunerative and keeping food prices stable are crucial to ensure nutrition for all. The poor populous northern states must make concerted advances in women's literacy, health, and participation in the workforce. It is imperative that policy makers deal with the situation on multiple fronts. Universal education, value-added skills accretion, and massive growth in employment in the formal sectors should be the key focus areas. Making agriculture remunerative and keeping food prices stable are crucial to ensure nutrition for all. Conclusion. India is set to become the most populous nation. Analysts believe that India's growing population can be a double-edged sword, and the country needs to put in place the right policies to maximize the potential of its people by enhancing the state of education, health, and infrastructure, so that India figures at better in various human development rankings. Q. According to UN's World Population Prospects 2019 report, India is projected to become the most populous country by 2027, surpassing China. Its successive governments largely failed to prevent population explosion in India. How population explosion could risk the future of next generations in India and the world. 250 words. The Hindu. Introduction. World Population Prospects 2019 has been released by the Population Division of the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs. The key message from the UN's World Population Prospects 2019 report is that national leaders must redouble their efforts to raise education, health and living standards for people everywhere. Body. Population explosion is the sudden increase in the numbers of individuals in a community. Lately we have been facing population explosion in many countries of the world. In the past 200 to 300 years, the world's population has increased tremendously. It is predicted that human population will increase by 1 billion in the next decade. Population explosion results mainly due to difference between birth rates and death rates. Key findings for India. India will overtake China as the most populous country by around 2027. India is also expected to add 273 million people by 2050 and will remain the most populated until the end of the century. India leads the set of 9 countries that will make up for more than half the projected growth of the global population by 2050. Top 5. India is expected to remain the world's most populous country with nearly 1.5 billion inhabitants, followed by China at 1.1 billion, Nigeria with 733 million, the United States with 434 million, and Pakistan with an estimated population of 403 million. Measures taken in India to curb population explosion. Fifth Five-Year Plan, 1974-1979. In the Fifth Five-Year Plan, maternal and child health and nutrition services were included as a part of the Population Control Program. National Population Policy 1976 and 1977. In 1976, the Government of India came up with its first National Population Policy. The policy came up with a number of measures to arrest the population growth. Some of the measures are: increasing the minimum legal age of marriage for girls and boys to 18 and 21 respectively. Monetary incentives for birth control. Improving the literacy levels of females both through the formal and non-formal channels. Popularize family welfare programs by using all forms of media. Inculcating population education into the formal education system. National Population Policy 2000 NPP 2000. In February 2000, the Government of India came up with the second national policy on population. For the first time since independence, this document comprehensively addressed the problem of population growth in integration with issues such as child survival, maternal health, women empowerment and contraception. The immediate objective of the policy is to offer service delivery in integrated approach to improve reproductive health and child care. The midterm objective of the policy was to maintain a total fertility rate (TFR) as 2.1 children per woman, as it was considered as the replacement level. The long-term objective of the policy is to achieve population stabilization by the year 2045. Challenges posed by population explosion. TFR varies significantly across the socio-economic groups. It is concentrated among economically weaker section of the society, which has implications on SDGs, poverty, hunger, malnutrition, health, education, etc. Jobs are not created at the rate it should be and growth is uneven. We have short window of opportunity. It is important to nurture and exploit this population growth to the best economic advantages as a challenge. Challenge is how we raise India's economic status from being low middle country to at least high middle income. Share of older people is rising rapidly. Growth for older people is 70% from now to 2050, but total population is growing only by 56%. The aspiration of the women and families have changed with time. They now want fewer children but lack access to family planning. This is evident from one report which says that there is 13% unwanted fertility in India. Real challenge is quality of life. 21% of 60 plus population is suffering from chronic morbidities. Unequal rate of population growth among states. Way forward. It is very necessary to create growth momentum. Investment should be adequately made in key infrastructure areas, social infrastructure, and that to particularly education, water, and health. Family planning is a preventive measure in bringing down maternal and child mortality rate. China and Japan have controlled their population by various measures. The same can be adopted by us according to our suitability. Proper healthcare facilities to women, education to girl child. It is imperative that policy makers deal with the situation on multiple fronts. Universal education, value-added skills accretion, and massive growth in employment in the formal sectors should be the key focus areas. Making agriculture remunerative and keeping food prices stable are crucial to ensure nutrition for all. Conclusion. India is set to become the most populous nation. Analysts believe that India's growing population can be a double-edged sword, and the country needs to put in place the right policies to maximize the potential of its people by enhancing the state of education, health, and infrastructure, so that India figures at better in various human development rankings. Q. Briefly explain the pattern of internal migration in India. Discuss the challenges encountered by migrant workers to avail various government benefits. Suggest your own measures to improve the delivery of services to migrant workers. 250 words. The Hindu. Introduction. Migration is defined as the movement of people from one place to another across the political boundaries, national, internal, or international. It is an integral part and an important factor in redistributing the population over time and space. Migrants who move the boundaries of their own country are known as internal migrants. Body. Pattern of internal migration in India. There are 4 streams of internal migration, viz. Rural to urban RU 18%. Rural to rural RR 50%. Urban to rural UR 5%. Urban to urban UU 17%. The Economic Survey of India 2017 estimates that the magnitude of interstate migration in India was close to 9 million annually between 2011 and 2016. The 2001 census estimated the total number of internal migrants at 314 million based on place of last residence, representing nearly 30% of the total population. According to 2011 census, the number of internal migrants rose to 453.6 million. The decadal growth in migration has gone up from 35.5% during 1991-2001 to 44.2% during 2001-11. Uttar Pradesh and Bihar are the biggest source states from which people migrate, followed closely by Madhya Pradesh, Punjab, Rajasthan, Uttarakhand, Jammu and Kashmir, and West Bengal. The major destination states to where people migrate are Delhi, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, Andhra Pradesh, and Kerala. Challenges encountered by migrant workers. Employment in informal economy. Migrants dominate the urban informal economy, which is marked by high poverty and vulnerabilities. In an unorganized and chaotic labor market, migrant workers regularly face conflicts and disputes at work sites. The common issues they face are non-payment of wages, physical abuse, accidents, and even death at work. Issue of identification. Documents proving their identity is one of the core issues faced by poor migrant laborers at destination areas. The basic problem of establishing identity results in a loss of access to entitlements and social services such as subsidized food, fuel, health services, or education that are meant for the economically vulnerable sections of the population. Housing. Lack of affordable housing in Indian cities force migrants to live in slums. Many seasonal migrants are not even able to afford rents, and slums force them to live at their workplaces such as construction sites and hotel dining rooms, shop pavements, or in open areas in the city. Financial access. Migrant workers have limited access to formal financial services and remain unbanked. Access to healthcare. Migrant workers have poor access to health services, which results in very poor occupational health. Education of Children. UNESCO's 2019 Global Education Monitoring Report (GEM) report shows that children left behind by migrating parents and seasonal migrants face fewer educational opportunities overall. According to the report, 80% of migrant children across 7 Indian cities did not have access to education near work sites. Among youth aged 15 to 19 who have grown up in a rural household with a seasonal migrant, 28% were identified as illiterate or had an incomplete primary education. Social exclusion. There is a growing hostility of urban governments as well as middle-class citizens towards the urban poor, especially migrants to the cities. Political exclusion. Migrant workers are deprived of many opportunities to exercise their political rights. A 2011 study pointed out that 22% of seasonal migrant workers in India did not possess voter IDs or have their names in the voter list. At policy level, the major challenge is to formulate migration policies which must be linked with employment and social services to enhance the well-being of the migrant living in urban area. Measures to improve the delivery of services to migrant worker. There is an urgent need to develop a coherent legal and policy framework on migration. Policy can have 2 dimensions: reducing distress-induced migration and address conditions of work, terms of employment and access to basic necessities. Development strategies in backward rural areas should be strengthened to provide sustainable livelihood opportunities, food security programs and creating opportunities for access to credit. Further, focus should be given on improving rural infrastructure, health, education and connectivity. A concerted national strategy that ensures access to entitlements and basic work conditions is necessary to address the plight of migrant workers. Internal migrants should be able to access legal aid and counseling to protect them from work and wage-related malpractice and to ensure they have access to grievance handling and dispute resolution mechanisms. There is an urgent need to ensure that internal migrants are issued with a universally recognized and portable proof of identity that can form the basis on which to claim other socio-economic entitlements anywhere in the country. Overall processes of governance need to be democratized in order to include internal migrants in decision-making processes and planning. Education provisions should be sufficiently flexible to ensure that mobile populations are not left out. Initiatives should be taken to foster social inclusion of migrants and reduce discrimination. Way forward. A national policy on migration should facilitate the integration of migrants into the local urban fabric and building city plans with a regular migration forecast assumed. Lowering the cost of migration along with eliminating discrimination against migrants while protecting their rights will help raise development across the board. It should distinguish between the interventions aimed at migrants for survival and migrants for employment. It should provide more space to local bodies and NGOs which bring about structural changes in local regions. It should focus on measures enhancing skill development would enable easier entry into the labor market. It should also distinguish between individual and household migrants because household migration necessitates access to infrastructure such as housing, sanitation and healthcare more than individual migration does. The policy should improve financial infrastructure to enable the smooth flow of remittances and their effective use require more attention from India's growing financial sector. Topic: important geophysical phenomena such as earthquakes, tsunami, volcanic activity, cyclone etc. Arabian Sea is comparatively less prone to cyclonic storms than the Bay of Bengal. Do you think climate change of late has been changing the cyclone behavior and challenging the fact that Arabian Sea is less prone? Analyze. 250 words. Reference. Why this question? The article discusses how cyclone patterns and occurrence over India's western sea show a change and that the recent data suggests that the previously calm body of water has also started receiving tropical cyclones of high intensity in a small time interval. Directive. Analyze. When asked to analyze, you have to examine methodically the structure or nature of the topic by separating it into component parts and present them as a whole in a summary. Key demand of the question. The answer must analyze in detail why Arabian Sea is comparatively less prone to cyclonic storms than the Bay of Bengal and what effect of climate change on it. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Begin with brief introduction on the geographical aspects of Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal, their regular trends etc. Body. Discussion should include the following. First, explain in detail why Arabian Sea is comparatively less prone to cyclonic storms than the Bay of Bengal. Almost 50% of the storms do not sustain over its waters, since the West Central and North Arabian Sea have a colder sea temperature than other adjacent regions. This cold sea surface temperature is not favorable for the development and sustenance of cyclonic storms. Then explain the recent unusualness around the Arabian Sea, causative factors. Discuss the key role played by climate change in such a drastic change in the regular pattern. Conclusion. Conclude by reasserting the importance of taking control over climate change to restore the natural course of the climate patterns and oceanic circulations. Introduction. A cyclone is a large-scale air mass that rotates around a strong center of low atmospheric pressure. Cyclones are characterized by inward spiraling winds that rotate about a zone of low pressure. Tropical cyclones are intense low-pressure areas confined to the area lying between 30 degrees north and 30 degrees south latitudes in the atmosphere, around which high-velocity winds blow. Horizontally, it extends up to 500-1000 kilometers and vertically from surface to 12 to 14 km. Body. Arabian Sea is comparatively less prone to cyclonic storms than Bay of Bengal. Temperature. Bob is hotter than Arabian Sea. Hot water temperature is the basic criteria for the development and intensification of cyclones. Salinity. Arabian Sea has higher salinity than Bob. It's easier to heat and simultaneously evaporate water, having lower salinity. Location. The typhoons originating in the Pacific Ocean too influences the cyclones in Bob, not the case in Arabian Sea. Movement. According to IMD, cyclones originating in Arabian Sea are believed to move northwest. So they actually move away from Indian mainland. The bay receives higher rainfall and constant inflow of fresh water from the Ganga and Brahmaputra rivers. This means that the bay's surface water keeps getting refreshed, making it impossible for the warm water to mix with the cooler water below, making it ideal for a depression. Cyclones in Arabian Sea. In the usual coast, there was an occurrence of one extremely severe cyclone in every 4-5 years in the Arabian. The cyclone pattern and occurrence has shown a change, and the climatological data from the last few years suggest that the Arabian Sea, west coast, also started receiving tropical cyclones of high intensity in a small time interval. For instance, in 15 years, 1998 to 2013, 5 extremely severe cyclones originated in the sea. In October 2014, the west coast of India saw an extremely severe cyclonic storm, Nilofer Category 4. Winds blowing at speeds greater than 125 miles per hour forced authorities to evacuate nearly 30,000 people residing along the coastline. In 2015, within 1 week, the Arabian Sea experienced 2 more cyclones, even stronger than Nilofer, Cyclone Chapal, followed by Cyclone Megh. Impact of climate change on cyclone behavior in Arabian Sea. The studies associated with temperature suggest that the Indian Ocean is warming, particularly the Arabian Sea, which is doing so at the fastest rate. Previously, tropical cyclones in the Arabian Sea were restricted to Gujarat. In the past decade, though, Kerala and Karnataka have also become more vulnerable to cyclones. A recent example is Akhi. The Arabian Sea is quickly responding to climate change signals, heating rapidly and driving more and more cyclones and excessive rainfall, although experts still do not understand how much of a performance climate change must work on Akhi. The rise in Arabian Sea surface temperature makes it warmer than other seas all through this period. Global warming adds to climate variability and weather changes. A sophisticated climate model to compare the conditions in 2015 to conditions in 1860, keeping in mind the carbon footprints. The findings suggest that 64% of the cyclone risk in the Arabian Sea was due to climate change. The coastal areas surrounding the Arabian Sea are at specific risk since the geographical location offers cyclones nowhere to go but the land. Cyclone management in India. India is highly vulnerable to natural disasters, especially cyclones, earthquakes, floods, landslides, and drought. Natural disasters cause a loss of 2% of GDP every year in India. According to the Home Ministry, 8% of total area in India is prone to cyclones. In 2016, National Disaster Management Plan was unveiled to tackle disaster. It provides a framework to deal with prevention, mitigation, response and recovery during a disaster. Due to increased awareness and tracking of cyclone, the death toll has been reduced substantially. For example, very severe cyclone Hudhud and Phelan claimed lives of around 138 and 45 people respectively, which might have been more. It was reduced due to the early warning and relocation of the population from the cyclone-hit areas. But the destruction of infrastructure due to cyclonic hit is not being reduced, which leads to increase in poverty due to the economic weakening of the affected population. Measures to tackle such incidences. The National Cyclone Risk Mitigation Project (NCRMP), to be implemented with financial assistance from the World Bank, is envisaged to have 4 major components. Component A, improvement of early warning dissemination system by strengthening the last mile. Connectivity (LMC) of cyclone warnings and advisories. Component B, cyclone risk mitigation investments. Component C, technical assistance for hazard risk management and capacity building. Component D, project management and institutional support. These components are highly interdependent and have to be implemented in a coherent manner. The NDMA had come up with its National Guidelines of Management of Cyclones in 2008. The basic premise of these guidelines is that the mitigation has to be multi-sectoral. Developing Integrated Coastal Zone Management (ICZM) frameworks for addressing the sustainability and optimal utilization of coastal resources, as also cyclone impact minimization plans. Ensuring cyclone-resistant design standards are incorporated in the rural-urban housing schemes in coastal areas. Implementing coastal flood zoning, floodplain development and flood inundation management and regulatory plans. Coastal bioshields spread, preservation and restoration, regeneration plans. There is a need for private sector participation in designing and implementing policies, plans, and standards. Need of disaster management program to be inclusive, including women, civil society, and academia. Conclusion. In Indian waters, cyclonic storms are associated with heavy rains, thunderstorms, high tides and intense winds that cause shocking destruction in coastal areas. The increase in the frequency of tropical cyclones over the Arabian Sea can result in a massive loss of lives, livelihood and coastal ecology. India should prepare to mitigate and deflect the destruction caused by cyclones. We need to employ technology, strict following of command structure and most importantly the participation and cooperation of local communities in the affected area. Topic: changes in critical geographical features, including water bodies and ice caps, and in flora and fauna and the effects of such changes. Q. The increasing rate of glacier meltdown calls for focused strategies to tackle its causes and consequences. The situation thus can be considered as an opportunity in many ways alongside the crisis for India. Analyze. 250 words. Reference. Why this question? The article brings out the glacier meltdown of Himalayas and how it has both good and bad consequences. Key demand of the question. One must weigh the positives and negatives of the glacier meltdown being witnessed in the Himalayan glaciers. Directive. Analyze. When asked to analyze, you have to examine methodically the structure or nature of the topic by separating it into component parts and present them as a whole in a summary. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Begin with facts of climate changing around the Himalayan glaciers. Body. Explain the melting of Himalayan glaciers and that Himalayas are losing 8 billion tons of frozen water annually. Then explain how these revelation calls for focused strategies to tackle its causes and consequences. The Himalayan snow deposits, the lifeline of the rivers emanating from this mountain chain, are critical to meet the water needs of millions of people in India and other Asian countries, particularly during the pre-monsoon summer months. Explain how this can as well be seen as a benefit to solve the water scarcity issue. List the benefits. Conclusion. Conclude with way forward. Introduction. The Hindu Kush Himalayan HKH region extends 3,500 kilometers over all or part of 8 countries from Afghanistan in the west to Myanmar in the east. According to ICIMOD report, 70-80% of the region's original habitat has already been lost, and that loss may increase to 80-87% by 2100. Two-thirds of Himalayan glaciers, the world's third pole, could melt by 2100 if global emissions are not reduced. Body. Importance of Himalayan glaciers. The Himalayan snow deposits, the lifeline of the rivers emanating from this mountain chain. It is critical to meet the water needs of millions of people in India and other Asian countries. The Himalayan altitude and snow have been protecting India from outside invaders since the early times, thus serving as a defense barrier. By virtue of their scenic beauty, they have developed a large number of tourist spots. Causes for melting glaciers. Global warming is the most dominant cause for snow decay. It also adds that the rampant environmental pollution in the plains along the Himalayan hills is also a cause. The air pollutants, such as black soot, carbon, and dust, which find their way to the glacial ice, absorb heat from the sun and hasten snow melting. Human activities like burning of fossil fuels, oil and gas drilling, deforestation, increasing land use in mountain regions, etc., are responsible for increasing rate of melting of these glaciers. Carbon dioxide and various greenhouse gases emissions have caused temperature to rise even in poles. The consequences of melting glaciers are: it has ramifications for the global climate. This region is a heat source in summer and a heat sink in winter. Along with the Tibetan Plateau, this influences the Indian summer monsoon. So, any changes in this region would have a bearing on the monsoon itself that already shows signs of changes in spread and distribution. It could trigger a multitude of biophysical and socio-economic impacts, such as biodiversity loss, increased glacial melting, and less predictable water availability, all of which will impact livelihoods and well-being in the HKH. Faster snow and glacier melting due to warming is already manifesting in formation of glacial lakes. Glacial lake outburst floods, GLOF, are becoming frequent and causing huge casualties and loss to local infrastructures. Glaciers in HKH have been retreating faster and consistently causing greater water flows in rivers. In Tibetan Plateau, river runoff has increased by 5.5%. Most of the lakes in high altitudes have also reported water level rise by 0.2 meters per year, besides their surface areas expanding. ICIMOD report paints a bleak picture for the future of a region that is the source of Asia's 10 major rivers and provides water, food, energy and carbon storage for almost 2 billion people. Biodiversity is in steep decline, driven by human development, pollution, overexploitation of resources and climate change. Example: urbanization is on rise in many of the HKH countries. With the growing impacts of climate change, along with new infrastructure development, trade routes and hydropower dams planned for the fragile region, the effects on the biodiversity is set to worsen further. Along with species loss, this will mean the loss of the key environmental services the region provides, such as water and carbon storage, to the rest of Asia. Hydropower is a big threat, with over 550 large projects in existence or under construction. Example: the dams constructed in diversions of Amu Darya and Syr Darya have now almost stopped feeding the Aral Sea. Many of these areas are remote and authorities have little control over border regions, sometimes plagued with ongoing conflict. Example: Indo-Burma hotspot. Way forward. To stop this temperature rise and to cool the planet, slowing down greenhouse gas emissions won't be enough. Current conditions will have to reverse, which will be the greatest challenge for the human race in the coming years. Better for all of us to accelerate to net zero is a matter of the highest priority. Net zero means the amount of greenhouse gases emitted into the atmosphere is no more than the amount taken out. Governments must focus on creating enabling environments and institutions that empower mountain people to share in the regional and global achievements and benefits of inclusive growth and sustainable development. Conclusion. Even 1 degree rise in global Earth temperature is alarming because it takes a lot of heat to do so. Various impacts of climate change today are being seen and faced on Earth, like melting of glaciers, uneven extreme climate events, loss of habitats of various species, etc. It is very important thus to control any further increase in temperature through environmental treaties and efforts by all the nations on planet Earth. Topic: distribution of key natural resources across the world, including South Asia and the Indian subcontinent. Fact is responsible for the location of primary, secondary, and tertiary sector industries in various parts of the world, including India. Q. What are our rare earth minerals? Why are they strategically important? Discuss their uses from strategic, developmental, and environmental perspective. 250 words. Live mint. Why this question? China has threatened to curb the export of rare earth minerals to the US as the trade war between the world's two largest economies escalates, the Asian country as the world's largest producer and consumer of rare earth minerals. Key demands of the question. With escalating tensions between US and China, and with China wanting to limit rare earth exports to the US, it becomes imperative for us to study and analyze the context. Directive word. Discussed. This is an all-encompassing directive. You have to debate on paper by going through the details of the issues concerned by examining each one of them. You have to give reasons for both for and against arguments. Structure of the answer. Introduction. In a few introductory lines, define rare earth minerals. Rare earth elements are a group of 17 chemical elements that occur together in the periodic table. 15 lanthanides, Z equals 57 through 71, scandium and yttrium. Body. Discuss the following aspects in the answer. What are rare earth minerals? Why are they called as rare earth minerals? What is the significance of rare earth elements? Discuss its utility in terms of defense, strategy, environment, etc. Global uses and production of rare earth elements. What are the issues involved? Aspect of China. Why and what is the turf? Conclusion. Conclude with their significance and what needs to be done to overcome the challenges involved therein. Introduction. The rare earths minerals, REM, are a set of 17 metallic elements. These include the 15 lanthanides on the periodic table in addition to scandium and yttrium that show similar physical and chemical properties to the lanthanides. The REMs have unique catalytic, metallurgical, nuclear, electrical, magnetic, and luminescent properties. While named rare earth, they are in fact not that rare and are relatively abundant in the Earth's crust. Body. Strategic importance of REMs. They have distinctive electrical, metallurgical, catalytic, nuclear, magnetic, and luminescent properties. They are strategically very important due to their use of emerging and diverse technologies which cater to the needs of current society. Its usage range from daily use, e.g., lighter flints, glass polishing mediums, car alternators, to high-end technology, lasers, magnets, batteries, fiber optic telecommunication cables. Even futuristic technologies need these REMs, for example high-temperature superconductivity, safe storage and transport of hydrogen for a post-hydrocarbon economy, environmental global warming and energy efficiency issues. The global demand for REMs has increased significantly in line with their expansion into high-end technology, environment, and economic areas. They are extremely important for many modern technologies, including consumer electronics, computers and networks, communications, clean energy, advanced transportation, healthcare, environmental mitigation, national defense, etc. Due to their unique magnetic, luminescent, and electrochemical properties, they help in technologies perform with reduced weight, reduced emissions, and energy consumption, therefore give them greater efficiency, performance, miniaturization, speed, durability, and thermal stability. Applications of REMs in various fields. Electronics, television screens, computers, cell phones, silicon chips, monitor displays, long-life rechargeable batteries, camera lenses, light-emitting diodes, LEDs, compact fluorescent lamps, CFLs, baggage scanners, marine propulsion systems. Defense sector. Rare earth elements play an essential role in our national defense. The military uses night vision goggles, precision-guided weapons, communications equipment, GPS equipment, batteries and other defense electronics. These give the United States military an enormous advantage. Rare earth metals are key ingredients for making the very hard alloys used in armored vehicles and projectiles that shatter upon impact. Renewable energy, solar panels, hybrid automobiles, wind turbines, next-generation rechargeable batteries, biofuel catalysts. Manufacturing, high-strength magnets, metal alloys, stress gauges, ceramic pigments, colorants in glassware, chemical oxidizing agent, polishing powders, plastics creation as additives for strengthening other metals, automotive catalytic converters. Medical science, portable X-ray machines, X-ray tubes, magnetic resonance imagery, MRI, contrast agents, nuclear medicine imaging, cancer treatment applications, and for genetic screening tests, medical and dental lasers. Technology, lasers, optical glass fiber optics, masers, radar detection devices, nuclear fuel rods, mercury vapor lamps, highly reflective glass computer memory, nuclear batteries, high-temperature superconductors. However, the extraction of REMs is one of the most environmentally negative and toxic generating of all mining practices. Disproportionate rare earth mining has resulted into landslides, clogged rivers, environmental pollution emergencies and even major accidents and disasters, causing great damage to people's safety and health and the ecological environment. Conclusion. The Make in India program, whose goal is to make India a manufacturing economy, will need REMs in huge amount. Although India is among the top 5 nations with reserves of rare earth minerals, there is no required technology to extract in environmentally sustainable way. Thus, India will need to firm up diplomatic trade channels and long-term supply contracts. There is also a need to develop suitable technologies, promote research and development to tap the REM. There are no more articles to read.